Austin had everything: wealth, power, silence. But the moment he opened a little girl's letter begging Santa for a dad, his entire world cracked, and a love he never expected began to find him. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Ms. Love Stories channel, the place where love, drama, and unforgettable moments come alive. I'm so thrilled you're here, ready to dive into stories that will make your heart race, bring tears, and leave you believing in the power of love. Before we begin, I want to get to know all of you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because in the next video, I'll give a special shout out to some of you amazing viewers from around the world. I can't wait to see how far our love story family reaches. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you never miss a single emotional journey. Get ready to feel, laugh, cry, and fall in love all over again, because every story we share here is for you. Now, the story begins. Rose. The penthouse was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Austin sat at the edge of his leather chair, staring at the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city glittered beneath him, alive and chaotic, while he remained still, untouchable, and in some invisible way, empty. The taste of expensive coffee lingered on his tongue, bitter, like the years he had spent alone. Every corner of the apartment gleamed with perfection, but perfection had no warmth, no laughter, no small, messy fingerprints smudging the pristine glass. Just silence. That silence had become his companion, more constant than anyone in his past, more reliable than love itself. Meanwhile, 3 miles away, Victoria shuffled through the narrow apartment hallway, balancing laundry in one hand and Lily's backpack in the other. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and last night's spilled cocoa, the small comforts of a home made with care despite its limitations. Victoria's shoulders ached, her mind a constant swirl of work schedules, bills, and the weight of protecting Lily from the world's harshness. Yet in Lily's room, laughter still erupted, bright, untamed, impossible to contain. Lily had been busy that morning, her small hands smearing glitter across a sheet of paper with a concentration only a child possessed. "Dear Santa," it began in careful handwriting, "please send me a dad." She paused, biting her lip, then drew a heart around the words. It was simple, innocent, devastating. Victoria hovered in the doorway, her heart tightening. She wanted to stop the tears before they touched her daughter's cheeks. She wanted to tell her that wishes didn't always come true, that some holes in life weren't easily filled. But she didn't. She swallowed the lump in her throat and kissed Lily's hair, tucking the letter safely into an envelope marked Santa. In another world of glass and steel, Austin's assistant shuffled papers onto his desk. One envelope, hand-addressed in a looping, childish scrawl, landed quietly among contracts and shareholder reports. Austin's gaze drifted down. Normally, a stray piece of mail would have been ignored. But something about the paper, its edges soft, its handwriting hopeful, stirred a memory he had long locked away. A memory of a small, scared boy asking for love he couldn't yet understand. He reached for the envelope, and as his fingers brushed against the paper, a subtle crack ran through the armor Austin had built over decades. A crack that might just widen into something dangerous. Hope. If you were in Austin's shoes, how would you respond to a child's heartfelt letter like this? Leave your thoughts below. Austin's fingers trembled as he unfolded the small, crinkled envelope. The handwriting was careful, innocent, looping letters that seemed to hum with hope. He read aloud almost to himself. "Dear Santa, please send me a dad who won't leave me." The words struck him like a bolt of lightning. A sharp ache spread from his chest to his throat, one he hadn't felt since he was a child staring at an empty doorway, hoping for someone to stay. He pressed the letter to his lips for a moment, inhaling the faint scent of crayon and paper. Tears unbidden blurred his vision. Memories cascaded uncontrollably. The hollow Christmas mornings with gifts he didn't care about, the silence of an empty house, the absence of warmth he had long tried to replace with wealth. A lump formed in his throat. He had built walls, invested in businesses, amassed fortunes, but never love. And here, a child he didn't even know had pierced through them. Across the city, Victoria was blissfully unaware. Lily bounced on the sofa, impatient to post the letter. She had imagined Santa reading it, bringing someone kind and steady into her life. She didn't know that, in another part of town, The words she'd written with pure, unguarded hope were causing a grown man to tremble. Austin could barely breathe. He felt a strange mixture of guilt, longing, and fear. He could almost hear his own childhood self whispering, "It's too late. You're too late." And yet, something stirred in the depths of his heart, a tender, fragile possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could become the answer to someone's wish. The office was silent except for the soft rustle of papers and the occasional tick of the clock. But within that silence, Austin realized something profound. A child's faith had cut through decades of solitude. He had a choice: turn away, as he always had, or lean into the fear and take the first step toward connection. And for the first time in years, the idea of family didn't feel impossible. Have you ever received a message that completely changed how you see yourself? Share your story in the comments below. After the letter, life seemed heavier for Austin. For the first time in decades, he felt a longing he could neither name nor control. Yet instinctively he recoiled. He shoved the envelope into his drawer, telling himself it was a mistake to care about a child he had never met. Business calls buzzed endlessly, spreadsheets and contracts demanded his attention. But his mind kept returning to the looping letters on that page, the heart drawn around the plea. He felt guilty. Guilty for the pang of hope he hadn't earned. Guilty for the loneliness he couldn't fix. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria was struggling too. She had watched Lily carefully seal the envelope, eyes sparkling with anticipation. A part of her wanted to let the child dream, to believe in the magic of possibility. But another part, the part hardened by betrayal, heartbreak, and the daily grind of single motherhood, pushed her down. She whispered under her breath, "No one can be trusted. No one can fill this void." As the days passed, Austin wrestled with the impulse to reach out. He found himself staring at the address on the envelope multiple times, imagining what it might feel like to meet the child, to hear the innocence in her voice, to see her smile. But fear held him back. Fear of intrusion. Fear of failing. Fear that stepping forward would only bring more heartbreak. So he buried himself in work, staying late in the office, ignoring the emotional stirrings that refused to die down. Victoria, too, fought against her emotions. She caught herself thinking about the possibility that someone out there could care, not just for her daughter, but for her as well. It terrified her. Years of self-reliance had taught her that depending on anyone was dangerous. Yet, inexplicably, she felt a flicker of curiosity, a whisper of hope that the world might still hold kind hearts, even ones as unexpected as a wealthy, lonely CEO. She pushed the thought away, busying herself with chores, bills, and Lily's homework. One evening, fate intervened quietly. Austin's assistant called Victoria's office to clarify a shipping address on a corporate letter that had been mistakenly routed. Victoria answered brusquely, shielding Lily in the background. Austin's name floated across the phone line, and something in her chest tightened. She abruptly hung up, pretending the call never happened. Yet her mind raced. She didn't understand why the sound of his voice unsettled her so much. Austin, too, felt the resistance building. He wanted desperately to call, to send a message, to simply ask, "Can I help?" But old habits, walls built over years of loneliness, made him step back. He told himself, "Not yet. Not now. I can't risk it." Yet even as he repeated the mantra, a subtle shift had begun. Something inside him had been awakened, and no amount of resistance could entirely erase the spark. For both of them, the letter was no longer just paper. It was a mirror, reflecting their fears, their vulnerabilities, and the secret longing that had remained buried for years. And in that reflection, they saw not only what they wanted, but what they were terrified of losing if they let it happen. Have you ever felt torn between hope and fear, knowing what you want but afraid to reach for it? Share your experience below. A snowstorm arrived that evening with a quiet ferocity, turning the city into a sparkling white maze. Streets closed one by one, leaving traffic at a standstill. Austin had intended only to return the letter in person, a brief, impersonal gesture to resolve the mistake, but fate had other plans. Victoria had just left Lily's school holiday event when the storm hit. The few steps she had hoped to take toward home turned into a treacherous slog through icy sidewalks. Her car was blocked by a fallen tree, and the roads were gridlocked. Frustrated, She spotted the glow of lights from the community center where the school event had ended. Thinking it would be safer to wait indoors, she entered, still shivering and holding Lily's hand tightly. Austin had pulled up in his sleek black car, planning a quick, controlled interaction. The snow slowed him down, forcing him to abandon the vehicle and trudge on foot. His expensive shoes sank into slush, his coat dampened by wind-driven snow. And every step reminded him that control was slipping through his fingers. When he finally entered the community center, he froze. There was Victoria, hair damp from the storm, cheeks flushed with cold, a protective arm around her daughter, her brow furrowed in stress and determination. Lily ran forward, waving her arms, delighted to see the man she had unknowingly inspired. Austin's chest tightened. He realized that this was no longer about a letter. This was about the living, breathing heart behind the words. Victoria froze, her instincts screaming caution. Stay distant, she told herself. Don't get involved. Don't trust him. But the snowstorm left them with no real option. The community center was crowded, and the roads blocked. Leaving was impossible until morning. They were forced into proximity, a literal and emotional confinement that neither wanted but neither could escape. For the first hour, silence dominated. Austin hovered nearby, careful not to intrude, while Victoria tried to keep Lily entertained. The child, unaware of the tension, chattered endlessly about Christmas lights, snowflakes, and wishes for Santa. Every word, every laugh, pricked at the edges of Austin's guarded heart. He wanted to reach out, to touch, to reassure, but the wall he had built around himself stopped him. Victoria, on the other hand, felt a strange pull toward him. The initial suspicion lingered, but there was also curiosity, a subtle acknowledgement that he wasn't like other men she had encountered. He was different, vulnerable, silent in ways that mirrored her own quiet desperation. Hours passed in this forced proximity. They shared occasional glances, small acts of kindness, an unspoken understanding. Austin helped Lily put on her wet coat, his fingers brushing hers, sending an unexpected warmth through him. Victoria caught the moment, and for a split second, suspicion and fear battled with recognition of something tender, something real. By the time the night crept closer, both adults realized something crucial. Circumstances had forced them together, but what mattered most was how their hearts responded. And for the first time, neither of them could deny that the spark between them, so subtle, so fragile, was impossible to ignore. Have you ever been forced into a situation where you couldn't ignore your feelings? How did it change you? Comment Bilou? The community center was quiet now. The storm raging outside like an unrelenting reminder that the world was often cold and uncontrollable. Austin sat in a corner, watching Lily build a small snowman by the window with a few stray pieces of cotton and paper decorations. Her laughter was light and unrestrained, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying memories long buried under layers of ambition, wealth, and emotional armor. Victoria, meanwhile, tried to focus on comforting Lily, tucking strands of hair behind her ear as she listened to her chatter about Santa's sleigh. Yet she couldn't ignore the man nearby. Something in Austin unsettled her. Not the wealth, not the polished appearance, but a quiet vulnerability she recognized, even without understanding why. It began with a small slip. Lily asked Austin to tell her a story, and without thinking, he shared a fragment of his own childhood Christmases. A house too big, presents too expensive, but no laughter, no warmth, no hands to hold him when the nights were lonely. He didn't mean to expose himself, but the words tumbled out like an avalanche of memory, raw and unpolished. Victoria stiffened. Her heart recognized the ache behind his polished exterior. She realized he understood what it was like to grow up with absence. Not just a physical absence, but emotional voids that lingered long after the doors closed. She could feel his loneliness like a mirror to her own. The uncertainty of being a single mother, the fear of failing her child, the gnawing anxiety that no one could ever truly protect her heart, or her daughter's. Hours passed in these quiet confessions, interspersed with laughter and small jokes. Austin shared the story of a broken sled from his childhood, the one his father had promised to fix but never did. Lily gasped, her eyes wide, and Victoria felt a pang of recognition. How often had promises been broken in her own life? How often had she told herself it was safer to rely on no one? Then came a subtle revelation. While organizing a stack of old holiday decorations, Victoria found a photo tucked behind a tattered Santa hat. A family portrait she hadn't meant to see anyone else. She froze. In that moment, Austin noticed her pause and, without words, offered gentle understanding. He didn't pry. He simply let her struggle with the raw emotion. The vulnerability that she had hidden from the world for so long. The conversation turned, naturally, to hopes and fears. Austin spoke of his fear of failing at relationships, of the walls he had built, of the pain of watching people leave. Victoria, slowly, shared moments of doubt and exhaustion, of nights spent crying quietly while Lily slept, afraid of admitting that she needed help. Neither confession was easy. Both were raw, exposing the tender underbelly of two adults who had survived alone far too long. By the end of the night, something profound had shifted. The forced proximity of the storm had not only brought them together physically, but emotionally as well. They had begun to see each other in ways no one else had. The barriers of mistrust were not gone, but for the first time, cracks had appeared, allowing the possibility of connection, empathy, and maybe, even if they didn't yet admit it, love. Have you ever discovered someone's hidden past and felt it reflected your own? How did it change your perspective? Share in the comments. The storm outside had softened into a gentle, relentless snowfall, blanketing the city in white, and with it came an unexpected sense of intimacy inside the community center. The chaos of life, deadlines, responsibilities, and the cold isolation that Austin had carried for decades, felt distant. For the first time in years, he could simply be, without armor or pretense, and Victoria, too, began to feel a rare comfort in his presence. Lily was at the center of it all, her laughter echoing like music as she decorated a makeshift Christmas tree with cotton balls, paper ornaments, and strings of colorful lights. Austin leaned over to help, his hands brushing against Victoria's when they reached for the same decoration. Neither pulled away, yet neither spoke of the electricity that seemed to hum in the air. The small contact felt significant, soft, tentative, and loaded with unspoken possibilities. Victoria noticed it too. She found herself laughing genuinely at Austin's awkward attempts to hang ornaments evenly, the furrow of concentration on his face making him somehow approachable, human. She realized that she had been so busy guarding her heart. She had forgotten what it felt like to relax, to trust, even just a little. For the first time that night, Austin spoke about something deeply personal. Not childhood, not loneliness, but his hopes for the future. He admitted to himself, and to Victoria in fragments of conversation, that he longed for connection, for the warmth of family he had never truly known. His voice was soft, vulnerable, and Victoria recognized the honesty in his words. It wasn't pride, it wasn't charm. It was raw emotion, unfiltered and disarming. Victoria responded in kind, opening a door she had kept locked for years. She shared her struggles as a single mother, the fear of never finding someone she could trust, and the quiet moments of despair when she wondered if she was enough for Lily. Austin listened, without judgment, without interruption, his attention complete, his presence unwavering. It was a stark contrast to the world outside, where she had always had to fight alone. As the evening wore on, the three of them, Austin, Victoria, and Lily, formed a delicate, fragile rhythm. They shared stories, laughter, and even quiet silences that felt comfortable rather than awkward. Lily fell asleep nestled between them, a small bundle of innocence, her trust in both adults unshakable. Austin watched her, and for the first time he felt the stirrings of something profound. A protective instinct, a desire to be part of something bigger than himself, to matter to someone unconditionally. Victoria felt it too, the subtle shift in her perception of Austin. No longer just a distant, intimidating figure of wealth and isolation. He was now someone capable of care, of understanding, of tenderness. She realized that the walls she had built around her heart were beginning to crumble, brick by brick, under the weight of genuine connection and shared vulnerability. By the time the snow had settled completely outside, something undeniable had happened. The storm had forced them together physically, but their hearts had chosen to meet halfway. Trust, laughter, and a tentative affection had begun to weave between them. It was fragile, yes, tenuous as a paper snowflake, but it was real. And for the first time, both Austin and Victoria understood that perhaps the family they had longed for wasn't just a dream. Perhaps it could be real, built here tonight in the quiet aftermath of a storm. Have you ever experienced a moment when trust and vulnerability created a deep bond unexpectedly? Share your story in the comments. The morning after the storm brought a fragile calm, but the tension from the previous night lingered like a shadow neither Austin nor Victoria could shake. For a few hours, everything had felt simple. Laughter, warmth, shared stories, and a fragile, tender connection. But life, as always, had a way of testing the fragile threads of trust. It began with a misunderstanding, small yet devastating in its timing. Austin, wanting to do the right thing, had contacted one of his corporate contacts to arrange a special holiday gift for Lily. A small but thoughtful gesture meant to bring joy. He did not anticipate the fallout. Victoria, already exhausted from months of single parenting, assumed he had overstepped boundaries. She saw the gesture not as kindness but as intrusion, proof that he was attempting to manipulate or control her life, despite his intentions. The first confrontation was sharp and instantaneous. Victoria's eyes flashed with anger and exhaustion as she faced him in her apartment, holding Lily close like a shield. "I don't need your help," she snapped, her voice cracking with frustration. "I don't want you meddling in my life or my daughter's life." Austin froze. He had expected resistance, perhaps some hesitation, but not this storm of emotion. "Victoria, he began, but she cut him off. "No, don't try to justify it. You think you can buy affection or care or love. But it's not like that. You don't get to step in and fix what's never been broken, because we're fine. We're enough." The words hit him like icy water. They were partly true and partly misunderstanding, but the weight of them left him reeling. He could see Lily watching from the doorway, eyes wide with confusion, and it broke something inside him. For the first time, he truly feared that his attempt to connect, to care, had backfired entirely. In the following days, silence grew between them. Emails went unanswered. Texts were read but not returned. Austin felt the sharp pang of rejection and self-doubt for the first time in years. He replayed every conversation, every gesture, questioning whether his intentions had been transparent enough, whether he had ever truly earned the right to reach out. Victoria, meanwhile, wrestled with her own guilt and fear. The anger she had expressed masked deeper insecurities. The fear that opening her heart, even slightly, could lead to heartbreak. She missed the warmth and laughter from the night of forced proximity, yet pride and fear kept her distant. Every time she thought of Austin, her heart twisted in longing and frustration. Yet she refused to allow herself the vulnerability that connection demanded. Even Lily sensed the tension. She asked questions about Austin, her eyes innocent yet searching. Victoria struggled to explain without betraying her own emotions. Each word felt like a betrayal, each lie a protective wall that both shielded and isolated them further. For Austin, the shatter point was more than rejection. It was the confrontation with the truth that human connection is fragile. For Victoria, it was realizing how much she wanted to trust but was too afraid. For both, it was a test of patience, courage, and the willingness to fight for something that might break them completely. By the end of the act, both stood at the precipice. The bond they had begun to form hung by a thread, vulnerable to misunderstanding, pride, and fear. And in the silence that followed, each questioned, was this bond worth the risk, or would their walls prove stronger than their hearts? Have you ever had a misunderstanding that almost destroyed a relationship? How did you overcome it? Share your thoughts below. Days had passed since the argument, and the city outside had returned to its normal rhythm. But inside Austin and Victoria, time seemed frozen, caught in a limbo between regret and longing. Both were alone with their thoughts, forced to confront the consequences of pride, fear, and desire. The bond they had begun to form now hung precariously, fragile as ice on a winter pond, and the choice they faced would determine whether it survived or shattered completely. Austin spent hours in his penthouse, looking at the skyline streaked with winter sunlight. He had always been a man of control, decisions, numbers, outcomes, but now he felt powerless. Every interaction with Victoria replayed in his mind. The way her eyes had blazed with anger, the protective curve of her arm around Lily, the moments of laughter and tenderness now tainted by misunderstanding. He realized that he could not fix this with wealth, gestures, or careful planning. This required vulnerability, raw and fearless, something he had rarely allowed himself to feel. Meanwhile, Victoria was at home, tucking Lily into bed, her mind torn between fear and longing. She thought of Austin's gentle presence, the way he had listened without judgment, the way he had touched her life with sincerity. And yet, the memory of the confrontation, the harsh words, the pride that had kept her distant, loomed over her like a storm cloud. Could she risk opening herself again, trusting someone who could just as easily hurt her? The choice was not simple. It was internal, invisible to anyone but themselves, and every emotion pulled them in conflicting directions. Austin knew he had to act, or the opportunity for connection might vanish forever. But fear whispered that rejection could crush him, that the risk of emotional exposure was too great. Victoria wrestled with her own walls, wondering if surrendering to her feelings meant losing control over her life, or opening the door to something deeper than she had dared to hope. The catalyst came unexpectedly. Austin sent a simple message, not grand, not flashy, just honest. I can't stop thinking about us. About Lily. About the moments that matter. I know I made mistakes, but I need you to know, I'm willing to try if you are. He didn't demand a response, didn't try to persuade her with gifts or gestures. He simply offered truth, leaving the choice in her hands. Victoria read the message over and over, her emotions a tangled storm. Pride battled desire, caution wrestled with hope, fear with longing. But slowly, she felt the tension within her begin to unravel. She realized that holding back meant losing something rare, something real, something that could transform her life and Lily's. Her heart, cautious yet courageous, made the decision. That evening, she left her apartment, hand in hand with Lily, walking through the quiet streets to find Austin. Every step was weighted with anticipation, with the risk of rejection, but also with hope. Austin was waiting in the soft glow of streetlights, the city around them blurred by snow and distance. Their eyes met, and for a moment nothing else mattered. I want to try, Victoria whispered, her voice trembling yet firm. Austin stepped closer, eyes glistening with relief and emotion. I've been waiting to hear you say that, he murmured. We'll figure this out. Together. Lily, sensing the shift, ran forward and hugged both of them tightly. The choice had been made, not through words alone, but through courage, trust, and willingness to face vulnerability. It was a moment of reckoning, of mutual surrender, and a bridge to the love they had long denied themselves. The storm within them had passed, leaving a fragile but real connection. They had chosen each other, despite pride, fear, and past mistakes. And in that choice, they discovered that love, unexpected, tender, and deeply human, was worth every risk. Have you ever had to choose between pride and your heart? What did you decide? Share your story in the comments. The morning sun filtered through the frost-covered windows, casting soft light into the community center that had become, over the past days, a sanctuary of unexpected warmth. Outside, the city bustled with its usual rhythm, indifferent to the tiny miracles unfolding within. But inside, Austin, Victoria, and Lily felt the quiet triumph of hearts finding their way to each other after storms of pride, fear, and misunderstanding. Victoria held Lily close, brushing the strands of hair from her forehead as the little girl yawned and snuggled against her. The tension that had dominated their lives had dissolved, replaced with a fragile, yet undeniable peace. Austin watched them, the weight of his years of loneliness lifting in small increments with every shared glance and soft smile. For the first time in years, he felt truly part of a family, a connection not bought or controlled but earned through vulnerability, patience, and courage. The day unfolded with quiet joy. They decorated a real Christmas tree together, each ornament placed carefully, each laugh echoing off the walls. Lily's delight was infectious. Her pure joy acted as a gentle glue binding Austin and Victoria in ways words alone could never achieve. They exchanged stories, teased each other gently, and found comfort in small, shared routines. The ritual of hot chocolate, the careful arrangement of lights, the quiet moments watching snowflakes drift outside. Austin and Victoria spoke openly about their fears and hopes for the future. He admitted his past mistakes and the walls he had built around his heart, and Victoria shared her lingering doubts and the exhaustion of raising Lily alone. But the difference this time was that their words were met with understanding, not judgment, with empathy, not distance. It was a conversation without pretense, a moment where honesty and love met, forming a bond that felt as steady as it was delicate. By evening, the family stepped outside to see the first evening of snowfall turning the streets into a winter wonderland. Lily squealed with delight, spinning in circles as snowflakes settled in her hair. Austin laughed freely, a sound he had almost forgotten, and Victoria couldn't help but join, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The snow acted as a silent witness to their reconciliation, each flake a symbol of renewal, hope, and the warmth that had grown between them. In the soft glow of streetlights, Austin took Victoria's hand, their fingers entwining naturally. "We've come a long way," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "And we're just beginning." Victoria smiled, eyes glistening. "Yes, and this time we'll do it together." Lily ran ahead, giggling, her small hand waving back at them. In that moment, the trio, Austin, Victoria, and Lily, stood united. A family formed not by circumstance but by choice, courage, and love. The letter that had started it all, the simple plea to Santa, had led them to something far greater than any wish could imagine. Trust, connection, and an enduring love. As night fell, the community center glowed warmly from within. The storm of misunderstanding, pride, and fear had passed. In its place was laughter, whispered secrets, quiet glances, and the unshakable feeling of belonging. Austin realized that love was not about grand gestures or perfection. It was about showing up, listening, and letting your heart be seen. Victoria understood that vulnerability was not weakness, but the doorway to the life she and Lily deserved. And so, in the calm of the winter night, the trio found the extraordinary in the ordinary. They had discovered that family could be chosen, that love could be unexpected, and that even the loneliest hearts could find home. Have you ever experienced unexpected love that transformed your life? Share your story and thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Your time, your support, and your presence here mean more than words can say. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or kept you watching, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in love. See you in the next story.